My dear brothers and sisters, with great joy I address all of you with the obvious purpose of really helping you on the esoteric path of intimate self-realization. In the name of truth, I must tell you that these teachings have developed progressively, gradually. It is obvious, then, that we are delivering a message to humanity, a message for the new Aquarian age, a completely revolutionary message totally different from anything that was publicly known in the past. Our teaching is gradual, I repeat. We have given several introductory books. Introduction to Gnosis, the Book of the Dead, and right now we are writing another kindergarten book, Gazing at the Mystery, which naturally brings many new revelations, even though it is kindergarten. Beyond the kindergarten teachings, we have the teachings that we could call secondary or middle, the perfect matrimony, the revolution of Beelzebub, igneous rose, the mysteries of fire, etc. And finally, there is the higher order of teachings. This is perfectly specified in the Christmas messages of each year. From now on, such messages will not carry the title of message on the cover. It will be known that they are messages, because we will say it inside on some page of the text. The cover will have only the specific title of the book. For example, Parsifal Unveiled. Now comes the book entitled The Mystery of the Golden Flower. Later, the Three Mountains will come. Much later, the Golden Book, etc., etc. In any case, higher education will be developed in the Christmas messages each year. Such messages are unfolding in a didactic, progressive manner. Each message will represent a higher note, a higher octave on the path, then, of transcendent and transcendental esotericism. When we reach the highest note, the summit, the synthesis note, let's say, then the message will be over. After that, it is obvious that I will leave with my Divine Mother Kundalini into eternity. As for me leaving, there is much, much, much that I have to say. I am leaving, and yet I will be with you, as the Christ said, until the end of the centuries. You have to know how to understand these words. Well, my dear brothers and sisters, leaving all that preamble aside, I just want to beg you for the need to study more thoroughly the Christmas messages of each year. It is necessary that these messages be reproduced incessantly, because until now they have not been reproduced. The editions are sold out and there is no one to reproduce them, and that is truly unfortunate. Our messages totally differ from any teaching known at the end of the last century or the beginning of this century, simply because of how revolutionary they are. Let us examine, then, some concrete cases so that we understand what such a revolution consists of. Reincarnation. Let's see, for example, this matter of the reincarnation of souls. Humanity has been given a lot of wrong information about this issue, and people, until now, have not been able to understand what reincarnation of the souls is. First of all, I have to tell you that the word reincarnation is very demanding. Incarnation, for example, is known to be the descent of divinity into a human being. Reincarnation means that such a descent is repeated. Divinity returns and takes shape in another human organism. Divinity reincorporates. That is what I understand by reincarnation. In Tibet, for example, there is talk about the reincarnations, avatars of Vishnu, Avalokiteshvara. I very much agree that this is what a reincarnation is. Remember that precisely in Tibet, reincarnations are celebrated with great festivities. When a Dalai Lama was born, it was said that he was a reincarnation, and all reincarnations were celebrated in a divine manner. Thus, it seems to me that the term reincarnation has been abused in the West. Krishna, for example, says that only the gods, the devas, the pitris or titans, etc. reincarnate. And that is obvious, brothers and sisters, because for their reincarnation, there needs to be a totally defined sacred individuality. If we said that Pedro, Pablo, or Juan, or Diego, Chucho, Jacinto, or Jose reincarnated, it would be absurd. Let's see, for example, the case of any Tom, Dick, and Harry, of any of those neighbors who live around there. Forgive me for the terms a little, if you will, somewhat humorous at times. What is that guy basically? Just ego, right? And what is the ego? What is the ego, I repeat? What is the ego? You know well what the ego is, don't you? Are the little brothers and sisters understanding me? Are you understanding me through this tape recorder? Are you listening to me? Tension, please. Tension. The ego is a lot. A lot of what? Of eyes. Oh well, that's clear. A shawl of eyes. Then it is a sum of eyes. Speaking simply in the style of Hindus or Buddhists, to be clearer, we say that it is a sum of psychological aggregates. So, to call them aggregates or to call them eyes is the same. Now, it is true that these aggregates personify certain errors. The aggregate of anger or the aggregates of anger, because they are multiple, are really, to a certain extent, subjective creatures or rather demons of a subjective type within which the consciousness is trapped. Envy. You know what envy is? That there are many eyes of envy, the aggregates of envy. Fornication. That's scary, isn't it? The fornicator eyes are so innumerable that one is astonished. So, after death, what continues is a bunch of devils. I repeat, after death, what continues is a bunch of devils. To say that this bunch of devils reincarnate seems a bit absurd to me. Think about it, brothers and sisters, or rather, put your right hand on your heart and ask yourselves if it would be correct to say that this bunch of demons, eyes or aggregates that personify our errors, reincarnate. Do the eyes have a defined individuality to say that they reincarnate? Do you know what sacred individuality is? If the eyes are many, where is the individuality? Now, if there is no individuality, who is it that reincarnates? It is obvious that the eyes cannot reincarnate. They reincorporate, that is, they return, and that is another thing. Yes, each one of you has returned many times, that is true. You have had many bodies in the past, that is true. But that is not reincarnation. Reincarnation is for holy individuals, listen well, for those who do not have eyes, who do not have psychological aggregates, for those who are divine, pure, immaculate spirits. To say that a divine spirit reincarnates, that is correct. But if there are eyes, how can there be reincarnation? If there are eyes, then there is return. Comprehended? My dear brothers and sisters, are you listening to me correctly? Are you understanding me? Let's differentiate, then. Let's do a deep analysis. Let us distinguish between reincarnation and return. The ego returns. Holy individuals reincarnate. Comprehended? Understanding this is wonderful because just by understanding this, there is already a revolution. Evolution? And what shall we say about what we could call evolution? We already know that evolution exists. I am not denying it. If they refute you by telling you that we are wrong, respond by saying that we never deny the law of evolution, yet we can in no way accept giving that law psychological attributes that it does not have. It is obvious that there is evolution in everything that is born, in everything that grows and develops. Let's look at any plant. There is evolution in the seed that germinates, in the stem that gradually develops, in the tree that bears fruit. But there is return in the plant that withers, in those leaves that fall, in that bush, which finally becomes a pile of logs. And that is obvious. Could anyone really refute this for us? Certainly not. It is not possible. And if they refute us, they do so in a completely absurd way. There is evolution in every organism that is born, grows, and develops. There is devolution in every organism that decreases and withers and dies. We intend to deviate from the laws of evolution and devolution because they are completely mechanical, because they belong to the Wheel of Samsara. We tread the path of the revolution of the consciousness, which is what leads us to final liberation. Jesus himself, the Christ, the great Kabir, taught this path when he said, "Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leads unto life, and few there be that find it." Matthew 7 verses 13 and 14. That is obvious. My dear brothers and sisters, such a path is difficult. It has three factors, it is true, which are die because you have to die, the ego must die, it must be reduced to dust. You have to be born, yes, we need to become true children of light, masters of the temple of the twice born. And we have to sacrifice ourselves for humanity. Jesus defined that when he said unto his disciples, "If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." Matthew 16 verse 24. Understand, to deny oneself is to die, elimination of the ego. To take up the cross, it is already known that it is to work in the forge of the Cyclops to reach the second birth. And to sacrifice for humanity, my dear brothers and sisters, is to follow the Christ, to imitate the Christ, to be willing to give up one's life for others, for the sake of the supreme sacrifice for humanity. As you will see, these points are totally revolutionary. Transmigration. Let's look at another aspect, what they call metempsychosis or transmigration of souls. Many confuse reincarnation with Pythagorean metempsychosis. It is because the people are not well informed, brothers and sisters, they are not well informed. That is a problem we have to solve. It is up to us to refute many errors. And it is clear that those who are, let's say, totally fanatical about these errors react against us furiously. But the truth is the truth, and it must be said, whatever the cost. Pythagoras' metempsychosis is not the reincarnation of souls. Do not to confuse one thing with another. Metempsychosis is the doctrine of transmigration taught by Lord Krishna in India around 1,000 years before Jesus Christ. It is understood by metempsychosis or transmigration all the evolutionary and devolutionary processes of the Wheel of Samsara. Undoubtedly, every soul is assigned 108 existences to self-realize. It is unquestionable that if during those 108 existences a soul does not achieve self-realization, then it enters into the submerged mineral devolution. It descends within the interior of the planetary organism, recapitulating humanoid, animaloid, vegetaloid, and mineraloid processes. When such a recapitulation of a devolutive, regressive, descending type has been made, then comes the second death, of which the Apocalypse of St. John and the Gospel of our Lord, the Christ, speaks. And the ego is reduced to ashes, and the essence, that which is the soul within us, released, emancipated, rises again to the surface into the light of the sun. It restarts new ascending, evolutionary processes that start from the hard stone, which continue through the vegetable state, which continue in the animal state, and which finally reach the humanoid state. Thus, the essence or the liberated soul reconquers the humanoid state that they once lost. When that reconquest is achieved, another 108 lives are again assigned to the soul that has entered humanoid organisms. And if they self-realize during that process, well, great, but if during that time they do not achieve self-realization, then the process is repeated, the devolutions and evolutions return again, etc. That is the Wheel of Samsara, that is the Pythagoras metempsychosis that many confuse with the theory of reincarnation of souls. That is the doctrine of our Lord Krishna, the great Hindu avatar. Doctrine that he advocated about 1,000 years before Jesus Christ. I think you have now comprehended what metempsychosis or transmigration is. This is definitely a revolutionary point of gnosis. An important point, my dear brothers and sisters. A point that you must understand thoroughly, deeply. I want you to be truly studious, to be serious, to study this message that is being delivered to humanity for the new era of Aquarius. There are many little brothers and sisters who try to mix this doctrine with old-fashioned messages, with teachings from the end of the last century and the beginning of this century. That is, there are those who try to mix one thing with another, and it is not possible. I don't think it's wise to put new wine in an old bag. Wine should go in a new bag, because if it is put in an old bag, the old bag can be destroyed and the wine lost. With this, I want to tell you not to mix the doctrine, the message that we are delivering, with old-fashioned extemporaneous teachings. Many, in their eagerness to study, really want to mix up this doctrine, this message, with extemporaneous, outdated doctrines and teachings, and the result is error. Questions and answers. Well, now I want the brothers and sisters here to ask me something, so that I can answer, and with the greatest pleasure. Disciple, Master, if a person upon reaching his 108 lives, by the fact of getting into the path of the revolution of the consciousness, would this person be given more opportunity to live, if in this life he were not able to self-realize the self? Samael Aun Weor. Of course, my dear brother, if a person's time has expired, but before abandoning their 108 lives, that is, before disincarnating, they resolve to follow the path of the razor's edge, the lords of the law, for this reason, assign to that person new existences so that person can save himself from entering the infernal worlds. It is not very tasty, really, to enter the submerged evolution within the infernal worlds. Understood? Disciple, Master, is it true that a fraction of a soul or an essence can be divided into two physical vehicles? Samael Aun Weor. There are very special cases, my dear brother, in which an essence is divided between two different personalities. A very interesting case was the case of our brother P.L. He felt like he was living in two different places, and it was because his essence was divided between two personalities, like a perfume between two bottles. Fortunately, one of those two personalities died, and the essence returned, then to our brother Father P.L. They are rare cases, but there are. Disciple, Master, why is work in sexual magic called work in the forge of the Cyclops? If you would be kind enough to explain to us, what does this mean about the forge of the Cyclops? Samael Aun Weor, well, you have to study the Greek classics, the Latin classics, and already having enough information on ancient classicism, you can intuit, my dear brother. If we explained everything from a rigorously logical point of view, it would be as much as castrating the teachings. And it is obvious, then, that the Cyclops existed, and that is what Homer tells us perfectly about in his Odyssey. Let us remember the case of Ulysses, then driving the terrible stake into the third eye of one of those Cyclops. Interesting, right? That eye of the Cyclops is nothing else but the eye of divine clairvoyance. The third eye. The Cyclops were the Lemurians, the human beings who knew the mysteries of sex in depth. The Cyclops were the humans who had not yet fallen. Their forge is nothing other than sex. When it is said that one must work in the forge of the Cyclops, it is meant simply that one must work in that forge where, truly, the titans, the gods, are made. That is nothing other than sex, because from sex come the gods, the heroes, right? Understood? Disciple, Master, I would like to kindly to explain what relationship is there between his message and the message of Master Krishnamurti. Samael Aun Weor, with the greatest pleasure, my dear brother, I am going to answer your question. Indeed, Krishnamurti is the precursor of the avatar of the new age of the Aquarius. Every avatar has a precursor. Jesus had his precursor, and this was John the Baptist. My real intimate being, my secret master, or my real being, has had a precursor called Krishnamurti, and that's normal, understood? Disciple, Master, I would like you to be kind enough to explain to me what does the word Rosicrucian mean? Samael Aun Weor. Oh, you ask me for a word that is also very demanding, my dear brother C. In the world, there are many schools that call themselves Rosicrucia, and that have only the name of Rosicrucian. There are also many individuals who call themselves Rosicrucian masters or Rosicrucian brothers, Rosicrucian initiates, etc. Above all, understand what the rose is and what the cross is, my brother. If you carefully examine the cross, you will see that it consists of two lines or two beams. The vertical one is masculine, right? The horizontal is feminine. At the intersection of both lies the key to all powers. Now, the rose is the spirit, the logos, to be clearer. Do you know what it means? Open the rose on the cross, let the rose bloom on the cross, that is, on sex between the vertical and horizontal beams. How and in what way is the rose going to blossom in sex? The cross is sex, hear it well. And for the rose to blossom in sex, what is needed? The rose is the logos, I repeat, And in what form is it going to blossom in sex, in the cross? Only through sexual magic, right? That's obvious. Of course, with this many may be scandalized, especially the fanatics of the different schools of the pseudo-Rosicrucian type. But in the name of truth, I have to say what a true Rosicrucian is. It's just the logos. Speaking in the plural, the logoi are the Rosicrucians. Only those who have reached the logoic state become Rosicrucian. Buddha is Rosicrucian. Jesus of Nazareth is Rosicrucian. Hermes Trismegistus is Rosicrucian, etc. It is obvious that many aspire to be a Rosicrucian, but to be a Rosicrucian one needs to be a Gnostic. It is not possible to become a Rosicrucian if we have not previously been Gnostic. We must, before, have worked in the flaming forge of Vulcan. Only then will the rose bloom on the cross. Understood? Disciple, master, at the end of the 7th great root race of this 4th round, will the earth then become a new moon? Samael Aun Weor. It is clear, my dear brother, that after the 7th great root race of our planet Earth, our world will become a new moon. Worlds are born, grow, age and die. The moon that illuminates us, for example, was a world that had rich life in abundance, in the past Mahamanvantara of Padma or Golden Lotus. But that world, after its 7th human root race, became a corpse, and now it is what it is, a moon. So, too, it will happen here with the planet Earth, understood? Disciple, master, in the case of the fallen bodhisattvas, what could their existence be called? Would it be a return, or would it be a reincarnation? Samael Aun Weor, well, regarding the case of the fallen bodhisattvas, I must answer that there is reincarnation in them, since they already possess the golden embryo of which I speak in my work entitled The Mystery of the Golden Flower. However, there is something of return in them too. The return in them is simply due to the fact that they have eyes. They have them because they are fallen. They may have been radically eliminated in the past, but when they fall, the egos resurrect. Those angels who worked in the past Mahamanvantara of Padma or Golden Lotus fell in Lemuria. When they fell because they entered the purely animal and brutal generation, their eyes resurrected. It is clear that when these bodhisattvas come into the world, they reincarnate due to the fact that they possess the golden embryo, but since they have egos, there is also a return in them, the return of the egos. There is, then, in them a mixture of reincarnation with return, understood? Disciple, yes, Master. Thank you very much. Master, would you kindly explain to me, why do you say in your works, or have you made it clear to us that Lucifer is God inverted? Samael Aun Weor, well, the question is interesting, my dear brother C. International Gnostic Missionary, and I am going to answer you, Demonius est Deus inversus, says Blavatsky, the demon is God inverted. And so it is, my dear brother, it is said that Lucifer, and I agree with that, is the guardian of the 7 mansions, which only allows the passage to the initiated, those who possess the lamp of Hermes, those who have been anointed with the oil of wisdom. The demon is God inverted. He becomes the jealous guardian of the mysteries. But it's a little hard to understand with the naked eye, due to the prejudices we have in our mind. We have gotten used to thinking that Lucifer is nothing more than a demon and nothing more than that Lucifer is the devil and nothing more than that. And when we are given a different explanation, we are horrified, right? Let's comprehend. Divinity inverted, well, is Lucifer, so what? Why are you scandalized by that? I agree with Blavatsky, Demonius est Deus inversus. But let's go a little further. Let us think of Lucifer as that terrible being who has the scale in one hand and the sword of cosmic justice in the other. This may scare you a little bit. I'm afraid I'll scare you, but I'm going to explain. Lucifer is the universal fire. And if the universal fire is Lucifer, then why are you afraid? Do not get afraid. It would be better to think that Shiva, the 3rd logos, the firstborn of creation or our divine monad, within the field of action of the universal world, personifies Lucifer. That there is a Lucifer modus operandi in our monad. This also horrifies many. It is that we have so many prejudices against the word that we have learned, and we must free ourselves from prejudices. Think for a moment about the third logos, that is, think about our individual monad. If the guardian of the threshold emanates from it, that terrible guardian of whom none other than Bulwer Lytton, the author of Zanoni, speaks about to us, then demonius est deus in verses, right? Understood? The guardian of the threshold becomes the unfolding of the divine monad, a mirror where we can see ourselves in full length, just as we are or how we stand, because that guardian assumes, for our good, the figure that personifies our mistakes. Many initiates, when they want to know how they are doing, invoke the guardian of the threshold, and according to the shape and figure that he has, they then deduce the conditions in which they find themselves, and they work incessantly to eliminate their psychological defects. And from that point of view, we could say that Lucifer is the third logos. The concept is daring, but Blavatsky herself affirms so. The best esotericists do not deny it, and I want you to understand it. Now that fire has two aspects, I do not deny it either. My dear brothers and sisters, we would call one Christic, and the other we would call dark. It is clear that fire is fire, and it can be used for light or for darkness. In any case, Lucifer is none other than the same third logos. Comprehend? Disciple, master, then, according to your explanation, so clear and so simple that you have just gave us, if the guardian of the threshold becomes a duplication of our divine monad, then does the innermost also become a doubling of our same divine monad? Samael Aun Weor, it is clear. Different sunderable parts arise from the divine monad. That's clear. In any case, the divine monad is the Shiva of Oriental wisdom, the third logos, the firstborn of creation. Different sunderable parts arise from him. Comprehend? Disciple. If the master wants to add something else to this tape recording, he has it at his disposal. Samael Aun Weor. For now, all that remains is for me to say goodbye to all our dear Gnostic brothers and sisters. Inferential peace.